don't spend all my weekends going to book fairs and bookshops, but one weekend this past October, I had a library book sale to attend on Friday, and then on Saturday, while visiting Stanton, Virginia for a wedding, my husband and I got to town about an hour early. We passed a shop that said used books in giant letters, and we decided to pull in and give it a go. Today, in honor of Nonfiction November, I'll share the books that I picked up that weekend. There are a lot of them, so my discussion of each will be brief. Hi there, I'm Linda Maxey, the author of the Library Lend Guides to Nonfiction Books. I joined my local Friends of the Library organization last summer after attending a stellar library sale. I've got a video on what I got at that one too. Because I joined, they let me shop at the first day of their next sale. Those first day sales are closed to all but Friends members. You get the first pick of the books, and the crowds are smaller. Here are the books I got from there in the shop in Stanton, and I'm excited to share them with you. The first is The Witches, Salem 1692 by Stacy Schiff. I already have Cleopatra by Schiff, an author I think who has won at least 2 Pulitzer Prizes and a PEN Award, but I haven't read Cleopatra yet. But I'm thinking this book, The Witches, will be a good book to read next October. So it will take a proud place on one of my close to tottering to-be-read piles. Next I picked up The Path Between the Seas, The Creation of the Panama Canal, 1870 through 1914, by David McCullough. Like many nonfiction and history fans, I love David McCullough's books. I've already read his biography of John Adams, 1776, The Wright Brothers, and the Brooklyn Bridge. I expect this book to be just as engrossing and informative as those books were. I tend to read history books for some reason in June and July, so even though it's not a plan right now, that's probably when I'll get around to reading this one. Next up is Celtic Myths and Legends by T.W. Rawlinson. It was published by Avenel Books in 1985. I probably won't read this book all the way through in a setting. The tales are presented as separate stories with commentary and black and white illustrations. I bought this book for inspiration and reference for the fiction books I plan to write later on. I'm tickled to have found it. In a similar vein, my next book is Favorite Folktales from Around the World, which was edited by the most awesome Jane Yolen. This book was published by Random House in 1986 and is part of the Pantheon Fairy Tale and Folklore Library, as is the next book I'm going to show you. But Jane Yolen has written more than 400 books for children and adults, and she's received numerous awards. A lot of her books are picture books, but she's written well-known books such as The Devil's Arithmetic, Owl Moon, and How Do Dinosaurs Say Goodnight. In this reference, she includes stories from 40 different cultures from all over the world, including Italian, Burmese, and Native American. This is a book I wanted to own for ages, and I picked it up at the sale for $1. I got this next book at about the same time as the others, but this one was an anniversary gift for my husband. Yes, he knows me well. The book is An Encyclopedia of Fairies, Hobgoblins, Brownies, Bogies, and Other Supernatural Creatures by Catherine Briggs. This is a scholarly work. Briggs had a PhD in English from Oxford University, where she wrote her PhD thesis on folklore in 17th century literature. She tells and examines fairy tales in this reference, but it isn't just a collection of fairy tales. She takes information from folklore around the world and has articles on all sorts of things like fairy food and giants and fairy lands and the like, and it's from all over the world. Like the folklore book by Yolen, this is a Pantheon Fairy Tale and Folklore Library book. As an added bonus, the Yolen book came with this old bookmark with other books in the Pantheon Library. Here they are: African Folktales by Roger D. Abrahams, Afro-American Folktales by Roger D. Abrahams, American Indian Myths and Legends by Richard Erdos and Alfonso Ortiz, Arab Folktales by Ania Bushnach. I'm hoping I pronounced that right. The complete Grimm's Fairy Tales by Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm, introduced by Patrick Collum. 80 Fairy Tales by Hans Christian Andersen. Irish Folk Tales by Henry Glassy. Italian Folk Tales by Italo Calvino, and I may not be saying his name right, but I would really love to have that book. It has such an excellent reputation. Norse Myths by Kevin Crossley Holland, and Russian Fairy Tales by Alexander Afraneskev, and I probably slaughtered that. I'm sorry, but I think I'm going to try to collect every one of those books. The next book is Haunts of Virginia's Blue Ridge Highlands by Joe Tennis. Here's the map of the area the book's tales encompass. I grew up in this area, and after a few years away for college, I've spent most of my life living here. The book was published in 2010 and is part of the Haunted America series. I confess that I love local ghost stories and folklore, so I was super excited to find this book. The next book is The Art of the Pre-Raphelites by Edmund Swindlehurst. This is a collection of paintings by Pre-Raphaelite artists like William Holman Hunt, John Everett Millay, Dante Gabriel Rossetti, Ford Madox Brown, and Edmund Burne-Jones, among others. It provides beautiful color photos of the works along with a brief commentary of each. And the final book is The Top 500 Poems, edited by William Harmon. This book was published by Columbia University Press in 1992. The longtime poetry editor and English professor William Harmon chose what he considered to be the top 500 poems written in the English language, and they begin with The Cuckoo Song, which was written sometime between 1250 and 1350 AD, and goes on through the mid-20th century. He ends with Sylvia Plath's poem, Daddy, and he gives a biographical sketch of each poet and comments on each poem to provide context. This is a beautiful book that I plan to keep on my nightstand to perhaps read one poem a night before going to sleep. So that's it for today. Have you read or do you own any of these books? Leave a comment below and let me know what you think about them or the authors who wrote them. And if you like to collect old reference books, let me know. I think we must be kindred spirits. For more nonfiction books to read, check out my books, Library Lynn's curated collection of superlative nonfiction, and Library Lynn's biographies, autobiographies, and memoirs. A lot of the books that I talk about on this channel are books that are actually included in one or the other of my volumes. And until next time, happy reading!